Hey, Spuddies, Potato Whiskey here, and welcome back to Let's Play Steel Division Normandy 44. Now, we have just finished up playing around with the SS Panzer Division, also known as affectionately as the SS Panda Division, and now we're going to be creating the Luftpanda. The Luftpanda. We're going to be playing probably about 3 games with these guys as well. I just wanted to get a good sort of overview of all the different divisions before I went into multiplayer. I have actually played a couple of multiplayers as a warm-up just to get used to it, but I haven't, I haven't really gotten into it. Okay, so here, now if we take a little bit of a look at the Luftlande, they're a little bit of a different shape. Normally there was quite a few tanks and sort of other stuff, but they aren't particularly weak in any area. I would consider if a division only has 3 cards, they're fairly weak in that area. But if they have 4 cards, I would say they're that's reasonably strong. 4 cards is, because if you have 3 cards, you can only pick 1 card per phase of the game, which limits your options. But if you have 4 cards, that means you can have, 1 card per phase of the game plus a little bit extra. And so looking at this division, it seems like the emphasis is very much so on infantry and air and anti-tank, with a little bit of artillery, and then it seems like these other things, obviously recon as well, and it seems like these other things like tanks, support, anti-air, those are like almost not necessarily afterthoughts, but they're just there to round things out. Okay, so let's have a look at the infantry that we have available to us. Well, actually, you know what's a good place to start? Let's start with the recon. I think the recon is a good place to start. So we have here the Aufkiera. That is a 2 strength squad with very short range guns. It seems 100 meters, and the vehicle they come with is the machine gun Kubel. And then we have the Spatrup, which is has a 7.92 millimeter rifles. It looks like 300 meter rifles. So these would be quite good at actually fighting, but the Kubel they come with isn't very good. And then otherwise, we have the Fallschirmjäger Panzer Airborne, which has an 88mm heat gun. Now, I think these heat guns are really interesting to me, so I'm going to bring one of these. Seems like a really cool a recon that also functions as a anti-tank. That seems pretty interesting. I'm going to take some of those for fun, because their stealth is very high, so they should be able to infiltrate into enemy lines and stuff like that. They do come with a Kubel. And then I would like the Aufkyria, because they come with the Kubel MG, which is a vehicle. These guys are better at fighting, but I don't really try to use my recon for fighting, and I think having the vehicle as a fighting vehicle will be better. Now, phase B, I could bring the more Aufkyria. Well, actually, I'm bringing the Spatruppe in phase A. The machine gun has a higher impact early in the game, though. That's the thing. Now the Fusilier, I will definitely bring in some of the Fusilier, I think, because they're really interesting. They're actually almost a full strength recon infantry. The only thing they lack is a squad mate. They have very good optics, so they can actually fight and spot. So they'd be pretty good. In a lot of instances. I think we might take these motorbike things because they seem pretty interesting. Have some mobile things. I think this is a good mix. We have some cheap and cheerful recon infantry with a vehicle-based machine gun. We have the anti-tank recon with just a regular transport. We have the actual motorbike recon with a nice machine gun on it. And then we have the Fusiliers, which is more of like a combat recon, very good at perhaps sneaking up on tanks and holding their own. Sort of like a better version of the Airborne, maybe? Or maybe a more close range version of the Airborne. So that covers like the basic layout of our recon. I think that's an okay mix to sort of play around with. I think we'll also fill out our tanks here. Now we could take a command tank, which is the Beffel Stug, which is actually a pretty strong unit. I think the Stugs are interesting because they're fairly heavily armored with fairly big guns. So in phase A, I would maybe like some, let me click here to pin this. So the difference here between the 35R and the 39R is that the 39R has a higher accuracy, a bigger shell explosive and more ammunition, whereas the 35R has a slightly better armor. So making the decision here is, do we want the bigger gun, the higher accuracy, or do we want the faster firing, lower accuracy, smaller shell? And I think it might make sense to just take some cheap tanks to throw at the enemy. We'll take some relatively inexpensive tanks, a couple of 39. Wait, which one's faster is the question. Yeah, we're going to take the 39H because the 39H is faster. So that's going to be factor into our decision. Early in the game you want fast tanks because you need to get them to the front line to support very quickly. Whereas later in the game, your tanks can be quite slow and it won't hurt you as much. Like I could take these Stugs, even though the Stugs are actually quite speedy. Now I could take a Stug 3G. But I think the thing to do would be to take some Bef Panzer 3s, which are command tanks. And they have pretty decent stats, I would say, for a Phase B tank. I could take the Stug 3G and use that. I kind of like the idea of having more availability. And plus, I haven't really picked up any leadership units. Now in Phase C, I think I would like a few of these Stug 3s. And I think that's going to form the basis of a very sort of reasonable, well-rounded tank deck or tank handful. And I'm going to be filling up these cards up to their limit -1, and then we'll kind of play around. So in support, we could take some Flammenwerfer. I like the idea of bringing some of these infantry guns just because they seem interesting to me to play. The Stug 42 is also really interesting to me for a Phase B weapon. But the Stu 42. Now, we're a little bit light here. I've never needed Kubel munitions. I've never needed munitions in Phase A. But otherwise I don't get munitions until Phase C. So I might, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this and see how it plays out. But I might have to switch over to the Kubel munition. Now, the IG-18 is a really cool idea to me. I think we'll play with the IG-18, and then we'll bring one Stu in Phase B. Stu 42, because this has a 105mm super weapon that'll be really useful for fighting in towns if I decide to bring that forward. So that covers the support, at least the sort of basis of the support. We still have a card to play around with if we want. I would also like to bring some anti-air. I like to fill in the weakest parts of the deck first, if you're wondering. And I think it would make total sense here. Maltia. Oh, that's like a half-track transport. I think it would make total sense to bring at least 188 in Phase C. And then in Phase A, I think bring in some 38s. And then in Phase B, I could bring some flak reelings. They're 20mm with some good range. I think Phase B, I think I'll take some of these 36s. Yeah, and that way we have sort of a scale of light anti-air, medium anti-air, and then heavy anti-air, and we have a good. We could build a reasonable network with these units. Okay, so I think I've covered most of the sort of specialized roles, such as support weapons, heavy armor, recon, anti-air. Now we've got to look at some sort of other stuff like artillery. Artillery is going to be pretty important in this deck, I feel. So if we have a look here, we could bring artillery observers in the Phase A, and that would be interesting. I think I actually like the idea of just bringing some really cheap and cheerful mortar infantry to follow up the front line. And then in the late game, maybe bringing up artillery observers. Or I could go mid-game artillery observers, can't I? No, I don't have that option. I could go very much so into a mortar style play style here by taking the Grafenwerfer or whatever they're called, 81mm. I think though, I feel like outside of Phase A, the real power of artillery is in the self-propelled variety. So I definitely want to take some Lorraines in phase C. In phase B, I might just take some cheap and cheerful artillery like these mortars. And then just take and then take an artillery observer in the late game. Although then I could take an artillery observer in the early game. What's the railroad battery? 380mm. And then what's this one? It has a heavy battery, which is a 210mm. Yeah, let's bring an artillery observer, just for the fun, you know? So that covers our artillery. Air is going to be pretty important in this deck, I feel. And we're definitely going to want the HS-129, because that's going to be one of our... This is basically going to be pretty much the most used anti-tank weapon that we have in this deck, I feel. So we're going to want to take a bunch of those. So I'm going to take some in phase A and in phase B. We're definitely going to want fighters. We're going to want to control the skies. So I think taking some 109s in phase B is a totally reasonable thing to do. Might also be worth it to take a heavy veteran in phase C, or even more. And then I've got room for 2 more. I could take some Ju-88s. Those could be really interesting bombers to use in the late game. They got super bombs, so let's take some Ju-88s in the late game. And then I could take another phase A plane to round out my build. And I think a good phase A might be the BF-109 here. The Storch scout plane has its merits, I think. But I think we'll take the 109. And that's a pretty reasonably rounded out air. You know, we have some good anti-tank, we have some fighters in the mid and late game, we have extra anti-tank, and then we have some heavy suppression bombers to take out like big guns and stuff like that. In terms of anti-tank, we already have Panzer Shrek infantry in the form of those other dudes, but I'm not against taking these. Let's have a look at the late game. The Martyrs. The Martyrs are cool because their guns are big, but they're made of paper and they're really easy to spot. So I think I might just take some 40mm packs. Pack 40s. Yeah, I think I'll take some Pack 40s in the late game as my big penetration unit. In the mid game, I think I might take some Pack 38s. Well, they lack HE damage, so that's kind of worrying. Yeah, let's take some Pack 38s in the mid game because they're quite cheap. And then in the early game, these Pack 36s seem really weak. They only have 5 penetration unless they get very, very close. So yeah, I'm not going to have many options for early game. I think I kind of have to take the Pack 36s and a Pack 40 to try and punch my way through the mid game. And then bring some Martyrs just to act as big, heavy tank busters in the mid game because they're more mobile. I have to play very carefully with these though, because they just seem kind of weak because they have very low armor. All right, now for the bread and butter of this division, we have to have a look at the infantry. Now, I think I kind of wanted to try something here. I am going to want some Fallschirmführers, and I'm going to want some Fallschirmjägers. I'm going to want some MG42s. I kind of want all of this stuff, but I think like I kind of read this really cool idea someone had on the subreddit was that this division is very much so an infantry spam division. So I'm going to take 2 groups of Ersatztruppen. I might even take 3. I have some MGs. I have some Fallschirmführers. I have some Fallschirmjägers. Then I'm going to I might take some regular Grenadiers in the mid game. Oh, do I want to have them in the... Wait, what's the difference between these? Ah, yes. So the difference between these is these guys have the anti-tank weapon. I think I'll take some Grenadiers in the mid game. I'll take some Pioneers. Should I take some Pioneers? I don't know if I should take the Pioneers. I could take the Sturm Pioneers. I think I'll take the Sturm Pioneers. They seem pretty cool. And then I'll take another Ersatztruppen. Oh, I could use another leader unit actually. Anyway, like this is like a lot of light infantry. you know? And we're going to just spam infantry at them, really, really cheap infantry, and use the Fallschirmführers and the MGs and the Fallschirmjägers as my tank busters and stuff like that. Now, I do have room for extra stuff, and I want to talk about where I feel weak. I think my recon is pretty reasonable. I think my armor, I could use maybe some beefed up armor. Like, these Panzers are nice, but maybe I could use a Stug 3 in Phase B. And I think I'll take a Stug B in Phase 3, and that'll round out my armor. And then these infantry guns, I could maybe use more of these Stas in the Phase C. Or I could take Kubel munitions just for the security of having the option of having munitions in the early game. And I think I like that. I like the idea of having the option to bring munitions up in the early game. But I think that's going to be this Luftlande deck. So I want to thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the gameplay video. Let me know what your thoughts are on this deck. Thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.